You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Welcome back. Both presidential candidates are spending the day addressing the damage left behind by Hurricane Helene. Moments from now, former President Donald Trump is set to deliver remarks following his visit to an emergency command center in the hard-hit city of Valdosta, Georgia. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris is on her way to Washington. She is being briefed on what actions the government can take to help with the fallout of Helene. Harris says she intends on visiting storm zones only when it is not disruptive to emergency efforts. And both their running mates are making their final preparations for tomorrow's vice presidential debate. The two are set to square off for the first time this election cycle. CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe has the very latest on these debates. The vice presidential debate, not typically consequential to these elections, but this year could be different. So what is at stake, Ed?
Well, you know, we're waiting to see exactly how these two interact with each other, given, as you said, that this is their first and likely only debate, and the one that is definitely, the undercard in the ongoing exchanges between candidates. But what it can help do is potentially assuage the concerns of people who'd like to support either Harris or Trump, to get some sense of who's backing them up here at the White House once that person is president. And in both cases, it's an opportunity to learn a little bit more about them, not only their backgrounds, but their records that they've completed so far and what they would potentially do going forward. And in both cases, how much of it becomes what are they about versus what their top-of-the-ticket candidate is all about. We've heard, for example, from the Walz team, they would like to remind us that when he was coaching football, he was the assistant coach, wasn't the head coach, and that's essentially the job he would hold as vice president, the deputy to the guy, or in this case, the woman in charge. And so you can potentially expect that he would perhaps focus on it that way. But remember, both of these guys were picked to, in essence, try to win the support of predominantly male voters in the Midwest. Because think of where these two guys are from, Ohio and Minnesota, which basically bookend Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. That's the kind of voter they were designed to appeal to in the beginning when they were chosen. How much of their pitch tomorrow night is about reaching those voters and helping either Harris or Trump get over the finish line in those states?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to observe their dynamic and how they interact. So I assume the strategy here for Walz and Vance, appeal to the male voters, appeal to everyone essentially. But how much does this help the presidential candidates?
Well, it can help. We can think back, for example, to 2012 when then Vice President Joe Biden debated then Congressman Paul Ryan in the Obama-Romney face-off. Obama had a rough first debate. Biden showed up, and it's generally agreed, defeated Ryan in that exchange and helped bolster Obama's case, restored some support that he'd perhaps seen slipping in the days after that first debate. In this case, the general consensus was that Harris did really well in that first debate between her and Trump, potentially the only debate. Could Vance potentially do something to put Walz back on his heels that raises questions about his ability to serve and Harris's ability to serve? Or does he deliver such a command performance against JD Vance that it only helps their ticket? So, good performance can certainly maintain status quo and help. A bad performance certainly could be a problem if there are doubts about either of the top of the ticket candidates and whether or not they're being backed up by the right guy. And certainly among Democrats, there would be concern, because remember how hotly contested the fight was to be her running mate and the other options she had, plus the concerns that maybe this was all done in haste when President Biden ultimately dropped out over the summer.
Good explanation. Ed O'Keefe. Ed, thank you as always.